Nishesham Mangalanga Bhuyas Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet Tu Sarva Bhutani Niratankani Santucha Vitirastu Parasparam Siddhirastu Chakaramanam Swastyastu Raju Nityapa Samprajabhyastate Vastu Swastyastu Dupade Nityam Shantirastu Chatushpade Shantirastu No Devasya Bhurbhuva Swashivam Tatha Sarvataha Shantirastu No Somya Bhavanta Bhutani Tvam Deva Jagatasrasta Pata Deva Tvamevahi Prajapalaye Devesham Shantim Kuru Jagatpate Yo Me Adya Snihate Tasya Shivamastu Sada Bhave Yascha Mandvishti Loke Asmi Sopi Bhadrani Pashyantu Hari Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Let there be peace to all, let none suffer, let the leaders be in peace, and let the people also be in peace. Let the animals also be in peace, and all of creation be in peace. Who is my enemy today, let him be in peace, and who is my friend, let it all him also be in peace. Well, this morning it's a nice morning here. The rain has fallen, the clouds are still here. But look at the reflection of that clouds in the water. Isn't that beautiful? Peace and tranquility. That's the peace and tranquility that we should have in our minds. At the end we have that. That peace and tranquility will be transformed into silence. And when we go to silence, that is the language of divine consciousness. Although it has no ears and eyes and hands and legs, it can see, it can hear, it can touch, and it can walk. It's all over the universe. So we are heading in that direction, and we should not hesitate to get there. Our daily routine should bring us into that path and sustain us. Whether you're a householder or a sannyasin or a student, this is the paramount importance of our lives. Today, let me welcome to this mandir of ours, the mandir that, again, that is energizing us. Mother Earth, we worship her. We live in her. This is our home. Water, this is a necessity. That we worship our rivers, the Ganges, as gods, goddesses. And the air, Hanumanji, Pawan Putra, and also we give them names, these 5 elements, so that we personalize them so that we could have a relationship. But when we do realize that these are the real gods and goddesses, then what will happen? We will elevate ourselves to that high stage. And this morning, let us have that in mind. We're praying this morning because a category 5, close to 5 hurricane came out of the ocean and hit the coast, Louisiana and Texas area. There'll be a lot of damage, but thank God that forewarning was given, and many people, million plus people moved to safer grounds. But the devastation will be there, and then the lives will be so much disrupted. But thank God America is always there to respond immediately to these kinds of disasters. This morning, let us do that Mrityunjaya mantra. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukam Bandhanam Mrityurmukshye Mamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Varadanam Urvarukrameva Bandhanam Mrityur Mamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Varadanam Urvarukrameva Bandhanam Mrityur Mamritat. Oh, so beautiful that we can be together and we can pray together and we can evolve together. This is the purpose of all of this. You know, Krishna Bhagwan, he is such a manifestation of consciousness. And what he has given us in the Bhagavad Gita is so powerful. But Krishna Bhagwan in the Bhagavad Gita, he identified who he is. And he identified himself to be 5 things. 5 aspects of Krishna Bhagwan, 5 aspects of every manifestation of consciousness. But Krishna Bhagwan is the master of that. He tells us that he is the consciousness that he told us before creation he existed as consciousness without a name and form. Then he took they manifest the universe through the 5 elements. So he's the 5 elements. And so number 1 is the consciousness, and then manifested the 5 elements. And then he created human beings. And then he animated everything that was created, and he became the individual soul. And then he showed Arjuna that Virat Roop in the Bhagavad Gita, where the womb of all of creation is inside of him. So he is that womb of creation. And then he took incarnation as Krishna Bhagwan, the one that we see in the flute at one time. Another time he will have the Sudarshan Chakra. And then he will be the loving, kind one, and then he becomes that one that restores order into the universe. So this morning we worship him as that form, and with Radha standing by his side, showing that he has control over his creation. He's not affected by the male or female influences. And then he has the brilliance. He talks about the brilliance of nature. 73 different things he talks about, but he talks about brilliance in nature. And here today we're seeing the brilliance.
People are nipping in the water.
I see the brilliance in the water. Look at the rippling, the freshness of the water. Look at Lord Shiva there, the bubbling and freshness of the water. He talks about the earth and all the creation. Look at these trees, how beautiful they are, aren't they? Oh, so we have that, and Surya Narayan, the brilliance, the brightness, gives us the warmth and gives us the light. And then he talks about air refreshing. And this is all him. He's talking also about the space. So Krishna Bhagwan identifies himself as 5 different things. But he talks about himself as God. But then he continues to say, how can we get into a relationship with him? He wants us to be like him. Because in the end he will say, Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mukshashami masacha. Krishna is telling, hey Arjuna, listen man, I told you all these things that I am. And now I want you to give up all of that. Forget all your duties and come to me. And that's the ultimate. But he was talking, how can we get into a relationship with him? Through devotion, bhakti. We can get into a relationship with him. Through seva, we can get into a relationship with him by studying the scriptures, especially Bhagavad Gita, what he said. And he says, but you need a spiritual master. And for us at the BHARAT SEVASHRAM, manifestation of consciousness, Swami Parameshananda ji. He's the one that created BHARAT SEVASHRAM and the institution. Followed by, he said, my institution with the like of that Buddha. Buddha is also manifestation of that consciousness. And he created Swamiji's. And I'm so blessed to be a monk of BHARAT SEVASHRAM at Swamiji. And I'm sure you also, you feel very fortunate to know to be a disciple of Bhal Sevashram and worshipping that manifestation of consciousness, Swami Parameshananda. So then he says, yes, and then we must have faith in what we do, faith what we eat, faith in our sacrifice, faith in the food that we eat, faith in the austerity that we do. Going to pilgrimage, when we go to these places, then we imbibe that faith. So this morning, these are things that Krishna Bhagavan is telling us. And then he gives an example of what it feels like to be in a relationship with him. Mean to become godlike. And that we can go through the Bhagavad Gita that spells it out there. A person who's compassionate, who looks out for the interests of all, not of himself, all, everyone. And then he talks about a person who is not in a relationship with God, who doesn't have the idea that he and behave like a human being, that he thinks that he came into creation through the union of his father and mother, and thinks that's all it is, and he enjoys the lower existence of life. And this morning, look at it, the bees, they're all here, right? And they're beautiful. Oh my God, look at this. They're so friendly, they're like a human being. They're listening, you could see them listening also. Anyway, so Krishna Bhagavan also talks about what it feels like, how to try to go closer to him. And then he talks about what is death and what happens after death. But these are the teachings of Krishna Bhagavan. So I want to remind you again that go to Bhagavad Gita and then you'll see all these things. Come under the guidance of the spiritual master. Otherwise, life would be something, when you come to our death, there would be fear there. We don't want to come to our, when we come to the time of death, the fear is there. Because if we really do well, do our meditation, do our yoga asanas, and follow the scriptures and the spiritual master, then we would have, in this lifetime, come to the realization that we are just passing through this elusive creation. And when we find that out, we'll be laughing and we say, I have nothing to do with this. I'm higher than this. I'm consciousness. From where I came from, I've gone back here. And I exist in this universe as consciousness. And don't get too much attached to this elusive world, but to get attached to that, become that consciousness. Our prayers today, Lord, Krishna Bhagavan, whatever the deity you pray to, I only have one prayer. Help me to read this properly, and just like you, I am consciousness. This morning, let us chant some mantra, and again, let us have in mind that all those who are suffering in the world, let us send that vibration. We have the power to do that. Think that you are gods and goddesses. You're not ordinary. And then you'll see the transformation. Om Sri Guru Shivaya Namah. 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 Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhi Pushtivardhanam Urvadukameva Bandhanam Mukhi Mamritato. Om Bhurabhuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Dhyana Moolam Guru Murti Puja Moolam Guru Pada Mantra Moolam Guru Vakyam Moksha Moolam Guru Bala Sisi Guru Maharaj Ki. Adorations to Krishna Bhagavan, the Buddha, the Christ, and all the incarnations that have come, manifestations of consciousness. Hari Om Shanti Shanti.